Good morning and welcome to the Fusionary Health Podcast. I'm Dr. Shivani Gupta, and this is the podcast dedicating to recalibrating your health every day. My goal is to help you wake up each day energized by addressing root causes and giving you new approaches to preventive health. The more we know about integrative health, the more empowered we are in building the vibrant health we want. Welcome to the Fusionary Health Podcast, where I have an incredible guest with me today, Dr. Brian Moraes. So I had heard about Dr. Moraes years ago as a practitioner in the community who really pushes the envelope, who is always seeking those solutions for your patients. And I'm so excited to dive into the topic of concierge medicine, hormone replacement therapy, Ozempic, peptides, a lot of these questions that so many of us have when it comes to our health. And as people are going through their ups and downs of their health journey. So welcome.
Thank you. Well, first, thank you for having me on your podcast. And yeah, these are things that come up day to day in my practice as well. We have so many people who have questions, and there's so many misconceptions out there. And my practice, we really dive into the research behind these things. You know, we're not just going to do something because, well, most of the things we do make people feel better, but that's not the only reason. You also want to make sure it's safe. Make sure there's good long-term data that show that it's safe. Sure. So we incorporated all of these things into our practice.
Nice. So I know your practice is here in West Boca Raton, Florida.
Correct.
You also do a lot of telemedicine.
We do some telemedicine. I prefer not doing telemedicine. We, fortunately or unfortunately, have quite a few patients who don't live in the state of Florida and who see us as patients. And for them, we tell them we have to see you at least once. Sure. But other than that, I like to have my hands on my patients. I like to listen to their heart. And, so instead, when we do weight loss, for example, most people go by the scale, right? And you go by weight. And that's so inaccurate. Sure. So if a muscular guy weighs 250 pounds versus an obese guy who weighs 250 pounds, their BMI is exactly the same. But it doesn't mean that they're both equally healthy. So we use body fat analysis. So we like to get our patients onto a body fat analysis machine where we can see their body fat percentage. We can see their visceral fat level. There's so many things we can check for. We like to do our own blood work. And actually the biggest part of my practice is blood work. We do a lot of detailed blood tests that a lot of patients haven't had checked before and don't have access to.
Sure. No, it's a big deal. If you don't have that data on yourself, you just are flying blind. You have no idea what's going on with you. And I remember after 2020 happened, I thought, you know what? I'm pretty healthy, but I'd like to be even healthier because who knows when this is going to happen again. And when I've done my blood work, I do it quarterly, if not half yearly, one of the two. I'm always astounded by what deficiencies I'm running. Yeah. And that's just an indication of you were going really fast in life. We're building our great businesses and the things we're doing. But are we eating a diet or living a lifestyle that allows us to have vibrant health? And if not, we're kind of building these holes that are just, that's what's causing all this brain fog, energy drain, hormones being off and things like that.
And medicine today has to be personalized. You can't just say it's one size fits all. So we do a lot of population-based medicine as well in our practice. I have a lot of patients who are from India or Pakistan, right? And so they have a completely different set of risk factors than someone who's from a different area. And so those are the people that have heart disease in their 30s and 40s versus people of European descent who develop heart disease in their 60s and 70s. Sure. So we are very proactive, and we like to really check what's most likely to affect this patient. So one of the scariest populations of patients in my practice are the fit athletic people, right? Who think that I eat healthy, I exercise, nothing's going to happen to me. And they don't take genetics into consideration, and genetics play a huge role.
Right. No, it does. It does. And I think so many of us think I eat healthy, I'm exercising, I'm doing the work, and thus I must be fine. And what we're seeing is we end up hitting these walls. Yeah. I'm seeing with all these women who are getting perimenopause. Then I'm seeing with the menopause crowd who's like getting louder on this is not okay. So let's dive in first into Ozempic and weight loss.
Okay.
Because it's one of those topics where I'm into Ayurvedic medicine, I'm into natural health solutions, but I'm also into whatever toolkit we have to reach into to get a result. And then what are we going to do to the lifestyle to maintain that result? And so many people ask me, okay, we know you're so organic and healthy, Shivani. Would you take Ozempic? And my answer is always like, no, because I actually don't know all the good. I know the good result, of course, because so many women are doing it and men, but the side effects are always my concern. So will you share your history with it? You were sharing you've done clinical trials.
Yes.
And then your thoughts on
So we do a lot of clinical trials in our practice, and we've actually done clinical trials on that class of medications, GLP-1 medications, for a long time. I've probably been prescribing or using these medicines in my practice longer than anybody. Let's start with Ozempic, which is semaglutide, right? And that's not the only medicine out there. Now, tirzepatide has become probably more popular because I think it has a little bit more weight loss than the semaglutide. Semaglutide is a GLP-1 agonist. So it's a medication, it's a substance that your body naturally makes anyway. And it gets broken down very fast. And what does it do? It does many things. It works on like 6 different systems in the body. It slows down gastric emptying, so you feel full faster. It works on glucagon, it works on insulin, and it works on your brain. There's so many areas where it's working. The studies we have done have not just been to look at the efficacy of the medicine. We've also been looking at the safety data. And so when any diabetes medicine comes out, because of something that happened to a medication quite a long time ago called Avandia, bad things happened when people took it, even though it was a good medicine. And so because of that, every diabetes medicine has to prove that it's safe for the heart. Now, the studies have not only shown that most of these medicines are safe for the heart, but they've actually shown they're beneficial for the heart.
Nice.
So there's positive effects of these medicines outside of weight loss and fixing diabetes. It decreases cardiac events. Okay. So when someone comes to me and they're a normal weight and they ask to go on one of these medicines, my usual reaction is no. There's no reason. You can do this on your own. You don't need that. You don't need the medication. If someone came to me, though, and has a family history of heart disease, a family history of diabetes, that's a different story. Sure. Because I may say, well, yeah, there's other benefits of this medicine. I don't think these medicines are something that you should be scared of, but at the same time, I don't think there's something that should just be thrown at everybody. And there's so many people using them, and there's so many people who are getting them through doctors that they don't even see, like online. They'll do a virtual consult, and they're being prescribed. You're destined to fail. If you're just using the medicine and not doing anything else and not changing anything else in your life, you are going to gain that weight back, and you'll probably end up gaining more weight later on. And a lot of people don't realize when you lose weight on semaglutide and tirzepatide, you're losing fat and muscle unless you're doing something to maintain the muscle. And our goal, that's why we use the body fat analysis, is we want to make sure that only the fat is going away. Got it. So with these medicines, you have to put someone on a decent lifestyle program, sure. Exercise, nutrition, look at the foods they're eating and eliminate foods. So we do even food allergy tests, not allergy, but sensitivity testing in our practice, where we look at what food should you not be eating. Sure. Like everything else, the more we expose our bodies to something, the more our bodies are going to react to it. So if you eat the same foods every single day, there's a chance you might start forming antibodies against this food and having reactions. And so we tell people either get rid of these foods completely or at least rotate them in and out of your diet. Sure. So going back to Ozempic and Mounjaro, which is tirzepatide, I think the medicines are very safe. Side effects, the biggest side effect is going to be nausea because of the way it works. So people need to start slow and work their way up. Some people have this knee-jerk reaction where they just work their way up to the maximum dose. There's no reason to. You work your way up to the dose that's working for you. If you're losing weight, you stay at that dose, and you can stay at that dose indefinitely until you get to your goal weight, and then we can start backing down on the dose. And if the weight starts going back up again, maybe we'll hold it at that dose for a little while.
Sure.
But the medicines have been studied in detail. They're very safe. They're very effective. People who are at risk for diabetes, it slows down the progression because a lot of people... a lot of doctors classify diabetes as a hemoglobin A1C, which is the 3-month average of your blood sugar of 6.5 or higher. But what people don't realize is that you're diabetic long before that. Your body has just cranked up its own insulin production to keep pace with your insulin resistance to slow down the progression of that diabetes. And so eventually your beta cells are going to get burnt out. You're going to become more insulin resistant. So if someone says, well, the medicines are bad, I will tell them being overweight is worse.
Correct. Yeah, and that's the thing is if we look at ourselves as a society, why are we on this train wreck of insulin resistance, metabolic disease? I personally think it's inflammation. We're so inflamed as a society. There's so many factors that are causing inflammation, including our food, diet, environmental toxins, stress, and all of these aspects. And so it's easy to say change your diet and exercise, but a lot of times people have tried. And so that's where when my friends ask me, would you do Ozempic? Well, I am actually open to trying anything in life that will get me a result for my health that I desire. But I'm usually one of those people because I have a lot of family history of heart disease and diabetes. I make it my mission and my job to maintain my health at a certain level. And the minute I see it jumping above the line where I don't want it to be, I'm doing the work to bring it back down.
Exactly.
And so can you share some stories of people in your practice who have used some of these medications where, they tried everything, they weren't winning, but now they're kind of in the safe zone. And then were they able to get off it and maintain? Because I think that's a big fear.
You get a sense of people, of how compliant they're going to be, how motivated they are, what their underlying problems are. And you're 100% right. Inflammation is everything. And now they have a new term, inflammaging, right? And so that's huge. And gut health is also huge. And
True.
we need to work on fixing our gut. And if you look at why people are overweight, or when did Americans start becoming overweight? You look at pictures from Woodstock, right? Not one overweight person in that entire crowd. Most of them had their shirts off and nobody was overweight. So when did it happen? It probably happened when we started telling people that fat is bad. And so people started eating more carbohydrates and more processed foods. People became more sedentary. And so the 70s, we started getting bigger. The 80s got even bigger. And then the 90s and the 2000s, now obesity is rampant. Yeah. So if I have a patient that I think is motivated, then I think it's a great medication for them because I know that eventually I'll get them off. And you have to understand that every diet works. No matter what kind of crazy diet you go on, you will probably lose weight. But the question is it sustainable? Will you maintain that weight? And is it healthy? Okay. I could tell you, you're just going to eat brownies. That's all you're going to eat. You will eventually lose weight. And why do you lose weight? Because eventually you get tired of brownies and you eat less of them, and pretty much you'll just eat when you're full. And that's the way human beings are meant to eat. But when we have a choice of a lot of different foods, then you'll never get tired of them and you'll keep on eating. Human beings prefer carbohydrates to anything else. So, you can
energy.
But you can eat a big meal, right? And feel totally stuffed. And someone puts a steak in front of you, you're like, I can't eat that. Someone puts a brownie or a ice cream in front of you, you say, I can probably get that in.
Sure.
Right. So, it takes a lot of coaching and a lot of counseling. And so with our, concierge members, we give them all access to a health coach, and they meet with that health coach on a regular basis. It's called the SENS program, and they're phenomenal because they keep them accountable and they reassure them, look, yes, you slipped. Okay. But you can get back on track again.
Sure.
And when you do that and you add that to the equation, then people tend to have better success in the long run. And my goal for every medicine, not just Ozempic and not just Mounjaro, even blood pressure medicine, is to eventually try to get people off of it if I can. If I can get people off of their blood pressure medicine and they maintain their blood pressure, hey, that's a win.
Totally. No, absolutely. And on the topic of inflammation, I know that when I ran into you earlier last year, it was, I believe, you said you love turmeric.
I do.
So will you share your thoughts on turmeric, since it happens to be my favorite spice on earth?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's been used in Asia for, thousands of years, right? It helps with the gut. It helps with leaky gut. It helps with inflammation. We recommend turmeric to a lot of our patients. And I've read, and you can correct me because you know way more about this than me, that when you heat it up, even you get even added benefits.
And from cooking, yes.
Mm-hmm. And so I tell people, not just to take the supplement, but also add it to your food. Make it a daily part of your cooking. So I think it is by far one of the best anti-inflammatory medications, supplements out there.
I happen to love turmeric. It's my whole life's work to share turmeric with the world and its benefits. Another important topic I wanted to dive into with you is hormone replacement therapy. So, there's the Ozempic conversation, which is, will it work for me? How can I do it and all that? And then the other aspect I hear about a lot is my hormones are off. I don't feel good. I find so many women have subclinical thyroid conditions. Now we're seeing with the perimenopause and menopause, people are finally, begging their doctors, please test my hormones. And they can see their progesterone has tanked, estrogen has tanked, testosterone is tanked, and or they're estrogen dominant, having tons of fibroids. I myself had fibroid surgery because I had to get this 10 centimeter fibroid out of me. There's a lot of women's health struggles happening. How do you approach hormone replacement therapy and supporting women?
So let's see where we tackle that. From what angle. Okay, so even if a patient can convince their doctor to do hormone testing, that doesn't mean anyone's going to do anything about it.
I know.
It'll be tested and it'll be ignored. For the longest time, healthcare in this country has ignored women's health, and it's ignored women's quality of life. Okay, women need testosterone. Women have testosterone and make testosterone, and testosterone is responsible for how they feel. But there's not one pharmaceutical FDA-approved testosterone for women. Right. Not one. Right? So women have to get it from somewhere else, a compounding pharmacy, or find someone who's willing to give it to them. And I will tell you, nothing in my practice, even weight loss, nothing has been more rewarding than hormone optimization.
Really?
When we fix someone's hormones, and this is men and women,
Sure.
They're the ones that come back to me crying, saying, you saved my life, you changed my life, you saved my marriage. Right? And I hear this almost on a daily basis because we do so much hormone replacement in my practice. And we've tried it all. We've used creams, shots, troches, sublingual
Sure.
tablets. We've done everything. And we find that nothing is probably more effective than pellets. Okay. And so hormone pellets have been around. They came out first. Testosterone pellets came out before testosterone shots in 1939. So they've been around a long time. And you'd be surprised how many doctors don't even know that they exist.
Yeah.
It's a minor procedure that we do in the office. It literally takes 5 minutes. We numb up the area, make a little incision, and the pellets go under the skin. And for men, they get the effect of the testosterone for about 5 to 6 months. For women, they get the effects of they need estrogen, we'll give them estradiol and testosterone, and they'll get that effect for about 3 to 4 months because their pellets are smaller and they dissolve slower. Okay. And the beauty about pellets is you're getting the steady dose of hormones released into your bloodstream 24 hours a day, 7 days a week until they're gone. Creams, they're absorbed for a short period of time. Shots, short period of time. Everything's a roller coaster except for pellets. And pellets also work on cardiac output. So the more active you are, the more blood that flows across the pellets and more hormone that's released into the bloodstream. Okay. And so if we have women on testosterone and estradiol, then and they still have a uterus, then we'll also put them on progesterone, which is a balancer. And progesterone helps with sleep. It's a feel-good hormone. And there's so many misconceptions about hormone replacement out there.
There are. Can we go over some of them?
Yes.
Because everyone's so scared of them. And even I myself have very low testosterone. And I remember I asked my acupuncturist, I was like, look, I have low testosterone. And guess what? I'm trying to build an entire supplement company to change the world. I know I need motivation. Yeah. I know I'm self-motivated, but I'd like some gas in the tank so I'm supported. And she's like, please do leg day and please just take your supplements and please don't do pellets. And I was like, I hear you that there's always positives and negatives, but some of us want to live really optimally.
Yeah.
So can you share?
Yeah. So I hear this all the time. My patients go see their gynecologist and their gynecologist says, don't do pellets. And so they come back to me and tell me this. And I said, okay, fine. Have them just give me an article. Give me anything that supports this. Because you can't just say, don't do something to someone and not tell them why.
Yeah.
In my practice, I like to explain to people, if I'm going to tell them something, why? Where's this rationale coming from? So a lot of the data that we have on hormones being bad comes from a study called the Women's Health Initiative. That was a very flawed study.
Right.
Okay, so first of all, they used synthetic progestins. Progestins are bad. We know they're bad. They're the part of that study that caused all the problems. Okay, so that's like Prempro. We do not prescribe synthetic progestins. And in fact, I don't believe in synthetic hormones, period. So I believe in bioidentical hormones. Typically, the hormones we use come from plants, and they're identical to the hormones that your body makes. And so they'll come from the Mexican yam or plants like that. These hormones I get from pharmacies that are tested and they have good quality control, and they're pure. So yes, there's certain things you always have to watch out for. I would not go to just anyone for hormone replacement. I would go to someone who knows what they're doing and knows the potential complications. So women, you give them estradiol and they still have a uterus, they could bleed. And their endometrial lining could get thick. So you want to make sure you balance it out with a progesterone. If they still bleed, you need to do a workup. Make sure they don't have endometrial cancer. It is not the estrogen that caused the cancer, but estrogen is like pouring gasoline on a fire. It will make that cancer worse. Okay. Conversely, testosterone. Testosterone is relatively safe for most women. Even women, if a woman has had a history of breast cancer, I would never give them estrogen. Okay, that could be dangerous, but I would not be afraid to give them testosterone because testosterone is a feel-good hormone too, and women feel the difference when they're on it. So men, there was a study that showed that testosterone could make prostate cancer worse, and that study was flawed. That study didn't even look at testosterone replacement. It just measured VA patients who had high testosterone levels and saw they had more aggressive prostate cancer. So I will give men who've had a history of prostate cancer testosterone once their prostate cancer has been treated and once they no longer have prostate cancer, and then we'll still watch them very carefully. But someone who's actively undergoing prostate cancer treatment, I would not.
Sure.
I think that the studies have shown that testosterone helps increase bone density. Right? So many women are walking around with osteopenia or osteoporosis.
Absolutely.
Definitely helps with hot flashes. Definitely helps with mood, memory, brain fog. A lot of women complain of brain fog.
So the biggest complaints that I'm hearing could be solved with testosterone pellets.
It could, and I never tell anyone this is going to fix all your problems.
But you could try it.
Yes.
And see for yourself.
And worst case scenario, you feel the same and you don't keep doing it if you don't want to. I will tell you, in my practice, out of the several thousand patients that I've done, very few ever say I feel worse, and almost nobody stops the treatment. They all say, yes, this is great. Does it help with weight loss? Probably not significantly, although estrogen does help a little bit with weight. But all your hormones are going to tank at the same time. It's not just the testosterone and the estradiol. Thyroid will also start to drop at the same level. So we make sure we check everyone's thyroid. And in this country, I think thyroid has been very poorly treated because most people are going by the TSH, which is not even a thyroid hormone. It's a brain hormone that reacts based on thyroid levels. And we have some enzymes in our body called deiodinase enzymes that convert the inactive T4 into the active T3. So we go by the free T3 levels. And we also, when we do blood work, you get your blood work report and you have your value. And then on the right, it has what people think is the normal value. That is not normal.
No.
What you see on the right is the reference range. Right. And the reference range is based on a whole sampling of people, most of them who are probably not healthy. Right. And they take the mean and go 2 standard deviations on either side and say, that's the reference range.
Can I pause you right there? Mm-hmm. That's horrible. If you take the worst and the potentially maybe healthy people in this country, and you take the whole country, and then you draw an average in the middle and you go, that's correct. Yeah. That's what we're putting ourselves up against.
Exactly. So that
makes no sense.
You wouldn't do that with weight, right? You wouldn't take a room full of people and say, okay, the average weight is this. Right. So you should be based on all these people. No, it doesn't. And that's what they do with blood work.
Nonsensical.
It is. So doctors need to know optimal ranges. Okay. So I have an optimal range in my head that I tell people. Vitamin D, we're huge on vitamin D replacement. In my head, optimal vitamin D is between 60 and 80. Right. Reference range is 30 to 100.
I know. Can you imagine 30 to 100? You're all fine.
Yeah, exactly. Everyone who falls in that, which is almost everybody.
When you could actually be calling that fine, for example, mine is actually close to 30. If I'm not actively supplementing and raising it, I'm low in D chronically.
Yeah, most people are.
Most people are, even in Florida. Mm-hmm. And so we could all be running in the 30s. Optimal is 60. And then we're all wondering why our hormones, why nothing is working right.
And vitamin D is not a vitamin, it's a hormone. So it should be treated as a hormone. And that's just one of many things that you need to look at and that are being ignored, and people aren't looking at these things. So, going back to hormone replacement, it's not just fixing the hormones, it's fixing the underlying cause of why the hormones were low while you're fixing the hormones at the same time.
I'm a big believer in fixing the problem. So at least we get someone back to like energized, brain working, body working, feeling good. And then once you're feeling a touch better, then we can have the whole lifestyle conversation. But if I sit there and I'm like, I know you're inflamed and your joints hurt, but I'm going to ask you to exercise, move more, sleep better, fix your gut, and do these other 6 things I want you to do, typically the person's going to say, you know what, thank you, but I need a different solution. So I usually start with, for example, in my case, my toolkit starts with turmeric, but I'm going to start with the solution first, get them closer in that range of optimal. So when you look at root causes, when you see people who are coming in with low testosterone, low progesterone, sometimes low estrogen, what are their root causes?
Diet is huge. Sleep is big. I'm a big believer in biometric devices. Okay, so I wear the Oura Ring, and I love the Oura Ring. And I look at my sleep every day, and my sleep is horrible, and I don't know why. Because I feel well rested when I wake up, but my data doesn't look good. And the single best parameter to look at if you do use a biometric device is the HRV, the heart rate variability, and you want that as high as possible. And some people just have naturally low HRVs. So on top of diet, stress management, I'm a big believer in yoga and meditation. And I don't think enough people do that. Enough people use meditation as a tool. It's exercise is big. Most people don't move enough. There's so many things that come into play that are not medicine related and that are not something that you can just take a supplement for. But inflammation is also big, and turmeric is a great treatment for inflammation.
So let me ask that question in a new way then. I'll give myself as an example, and I represent a lot of women because I have a lot of clients who suffer in the way I do. I eat healthy, in my opinion, healthy from my standpoint, vegetarian, gluten-free, fresh food almost daily in my house. Exercise, obsessed with exercise. I actually have completely flipped my exercise regimen because I found in this new perimenopause stage, the HIIT workouts where I was burning the candle at both ends no longer worked for me. So I had to change everything. Stress management is tougher to achieve because I find when you're ambitious and you want to do big things, then there's so much opportunity. You're just managing, 100 leads in a day. Sleep, of course, prioritizing sleep is key. I actually lean heavily into sleep tools. My sleep tea, I have sleep gummies. I use someone else's sleep cream. Like anyone who makes a sleep tool, I try it. I want to fix sleep in people so that they clear their inflammation.
It's true.
It's like the easiest way to clear inflammation is just sleep better. But even with all that, and drinking out of glass all the time, I don't accept plastic water bottles. I've reduced our endocrine disruptions on the whole house system. I have huge water filtration systems on my home. Air purifiers. Like if there was a girl obsessed with a non-toxic lifestyle, it's me. Despite all that, still need hormone support. So I think in modern day times, we're running this like deficient lifestyle where we want optimal, but it's not easy to raise your bar all the way up to optimal yourself. And that's where you need more toolkits or else you just suffer.
You do. And okay, so let's go back to diet, right? You can say you eat healthy, but I don't think anybody eats healthy compared to how we ate 100 years ago. Our soil is so devoid of nutrients and so loaded with toxins that you just can't get it. You can't get all the nutrients you need from a modern American diet. Lots of people tell me that they're vegetarian, and I'm sure you eat healthy, but most vegetarians do not eat healthy. It's mostly they eat a lot of carbohydrates, right? And so
it's just easier.
Yes, it is. It's the easy thing.
You have to really focus as a vegetarian to try to hit 20 to 30 grams of protein a meal is like its own job.
And I think people need more than that. So, no, in a day, I would say that they need a decent amount. But here's the thing that you can do everything right, and you're still probably just staying level. And we haven't even talked about toxins and mold and all that stuff that's affecting us. There's so much out there that we're being bombarded with. And I just don't know. I don't know what the solution is. The solution, as far as I can see, is to do your best to optimize people. And if you have to do it artificially, then you have to do it artificially.
Right. I have 2 funny questions for you. One is testosterone. Does it make you hairy? Like if a woman does it, what are those side effects?
It is a potential side effect. Okay. Not everybody gets it. It's usually the people who are already genetically predisposed to having excessive hair, especially like darkening hairs on the chin. But, it's not a difficult fix. It's usually like waxing or laser hair removal, something like that. And I can always back down on the dose if we have to, but it's a potential side effect. Another side effect that can happen is acne, because of the energy, and it doesn't happen in everybody. It happens in maybe about like 5% of the people I do. And even those people, half of them say, no, I feel great and I don't want to stop. I'll deal with that
Sure.
as a side effect.
Sure. Because you'll feel great.
Yep.
And then I heard someone share with me that when it comes to menopause and when it comes to a lot of drugs, they historically were studied on men, not on women. And then we don't have the same level of data on what things do on women because women have too much of a cycle. Like you can't time a woman with her cycle. So can you share about that? Because it kind of illustrates why we're not succeeding as well with the medical solutions that are out there right now and going to our traditional doctor, because the solution they're offering might not be titrated or like in the measurements that are for us.
Yeah. Until recently, like I said before, women have been ignored. I'm a huge fan of Dr. Mindy Pelz. I don't know if you know her, and her book, Fast Like a Girl, and the Menopause Reset. So, because she actually said men and women should not be fasting the same way. And I'm a big believer in fasting. I didn't even talk about that before, but fasting is such a game changer, right? It can fix hormones. It can do so much, especially when you hit autophagy, which is the goal of fasting. But I recommend for most women who are not feeling great to read her book.
Yes. I'm listening to it right now, and it's fascinating because she's saying you can't just hold a fast all month.
Right.
You better adjust it. And it makes so much sense.
But men can. Men can fast anytime, and it's different. So we have to really look at people differently. We have to look at men and women differently. We have to look at different races differently, because everything has come about from evolution. We've evolved to be who we are over tens of thousands of years. And so we can't all of a sudden just change all that and say, well, okay, now everyone's just going to do this. They're going to do the same thing.
Right. And, it's interesting. Race and all these things do play a part. And if you don't have a texture or a feel for that, I remember I got fibroid surgery and I told the surgeon, I said, I am a lightweight. I take no pain meds ever. I'm one of those really natural people. Whatever you're going to do, please keep it as low dose as you can. And he's like, trust me, you're going to want the pain meds. I'm prescribing them. I said, okay, fine. I took one because I felt like I was in labor afterwards. It was so much pain. And I fainted. And then I called a brother-in-law of mine who's in pain management. And he said, you were supposed to cut that into quarters. Yeah. Did he not understand how small you are? Like, that's the dose for a large white male.
Yeah. And not only that, but you're also pain medicine naive, right? So if someone's taking pain medicines every single day, they would need probably 10 times that amount. And medicine has changed now into where everything has been dictated by the insurance companies, which is one of the main reasons why we switched over to the concierge model, is because I'm not going to just do a 15-minute visit. I can't know enough about anyone in a 15-minute visit. So typically our visits are an hour long. And I know everything about them. And I know, what medicines have you taken before? What's your family history? And if you aren't getting all that information, you just can't make a decision.
You don't have enough detail.
Nope.
So will you share one or two client stories with me? Because I know that every time my listeners hear these stories, then they really understand the power of, for example, HRT or any of the other solutions you've talked about, or even peptides, which we haven't even gotten into yet. Just because it is one of those things where people are reaching out to me all the time, and they're reaching out because they don't get the answers they need. They don't get the support they need. Usually that root cause is inflammation, but I like to illustrate that we are multifaceted. We are a whole spectrum. And even though I might be great in like half the areas of my health that I want to be, what are those other halves that we need to address if we are truly preventive? If we're truly preventing what's coming down the pipeline for us based on what's showing up in our blood work and things now.
Yeah. So first, we have to have people that we work with have to be motivated. They have to want to make a change.
Sure. Because
I don't believe in short-term fixes. Right. So I had a patient, a female patient. I don't remember how old she was, probably in her 50s. Her BMI was exact where it should be, maybe like 22, 23, which is where all the insurance tables say you should be. But when you did the body fat analysis on her, she's what we call skinny fat. Okay. No muscle and lots of fat. So her body fat percentage was like 30.
Okay.
And so that person was doing most of the things right, not exercising enough, of course, but kind of eating healthy. And I did put that person on Ozempic.
Okay.
And she got excellent results. And then we started realizing how really scrawny she is underneath that. So we put her on a weight training program, and she was able to build a decent amount of muscle. And she said she felt great. I mean, it changed everything. She was sleeping better. Her energy level was better.
Nice.
You know, a lot of times they say muscle is the currency of health.
Sure.
Right. And that's
True.
what makes us age, when we lose muscle. And so many people lose muscle as they get older.
True.
Even people who are overweight, it's not the fat that's always making them unhealthy. It's the lack of muscle underneath all that fat that makes them unhealthy.
Sure.
And then another story, I had a patient who was unhappy, and she had a great husband. Everything was going well in her life. They had plenty of money, but she just was not happy, and it was jeopardizing her marriage. Her libido was almost zero.
Sure.
Her energy level was almost zero. And when we did hormone replacement on her, and you should, her face, I mean, she just lit up and said, I feel like I'm 20 years old again.
Wow.
She said, I never thought I could feel this way. And her marriage was significantly better. Her relationship with her kids was better.
That's
So,
an amazing story.
well, I see those stories all the time. It's almost every day that, and you know, I can treat someone's high blood pressure, and they're never going to come to say, I feel great, I feel amazing. No,
Right.
they're going to say, yeah, I take that medicine you gave me.
Yeah.
Cholesterol, same thing.
Right.
You know, but you do something that affects your quality of life. And our goal should not be to live as long as we can. Our goal should be to have as good of a quality of life for as long as we can.
True.
There are people who die at 30 who've lived more than some people who die at 90.
Sure. No, it's true. I do think about that sometimes, because in the last few years, I've been going to like biohacking conferences, longevity conferences, chiropractic, functional medicine, like you name a conference, I went to all of them. And I've been speaking at some, but it's an interesting journey when you think about, do you really want to live till 100?
Right.
And what is your quality of life going to be? Because in my family, the quality of life in the last quarter is historically horrible.
Yeah.
It's why I do what I do. I couldn't imagine being diabetic, heart disease, heart attack, stroke, leg amputation, Parkinson's. It's all there.
Yeah.
I saw it-
Alzheimer's. Dementia is big.
Yeah, dementia is very big. And so when it comes to your patients, I know when I came to your office and I met with you, you said a lot of people come to you because they're athletes, or they're people who are wanting to optimize. They're not coming to you because they're sick.
Nope. In fact, I want to get them before they're sick.
Sure.
Okay? So we practice preventive cardiology in our practice, which is not the same as cardiology. Typical cardiology is treating them after they've had an event or after they've had heart disease. I want to treat them before.
Sure.
So do I put everyone on a statin? No. And I think statins are good tools, and I think they're another medicine that's gotten a really bad rap. But for some people, they need them. Sometimes the goal is to get people's LDL under 70 or even lower than that if there's certain things going on. So we do a lot of coronary calcium scores in our practice,
Sure.
even coronary CT angiograms in our practice. We screen. And by screening, we can tell which way someone's heading, especially if they have a family history.
Sure. That's
So-
a big deal, especially now. We're seeing such an uptick. So many people's cholesterol is running high, and they don't want to take a medication, but they also aren't applying any toolkit to that problem.
Exactly. A lot of them don't need medication, but they need something. They need to do something about it. It's, and we talked about dementia and Alzheimer's disease. So many people have a family history of dementia, and they've never even had their ApoE genetics checked. ApoE is one of the biggest factors out there for dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Most of the people who have Alzheimer's have an ApoE3/4 or an ApoE4/4 gene. And if you have that gene, you can modify your lifestyle. You can modify your diet. There's certain things that you can do to slow down the progression.
So true prevention
Hmm?
by
True.
understanding your data.
Yes, exactly.
I love that.
Yeah. Being
When you say
proactive.
genetic testing, you mean DNA testing of yourself.
Yeah.
To dive in.
Yeah, and these genetic tests are available. They're not outrageously expensive. I mean, you can do 23andMe, and it'll give you like a whole bunch of genes. But we're big on genetic testing. In our practice, we try to do as much as we can that's covered by insurance, and try to run most things through insurance so people don't have to pay a lot. And we're able to do that for most things, but genetic testing has been harder to check. So we always are looking for labs that will do it for less than other labs so we can give them the best rate. And we try to check genes that are modifiable. We don't check every gene because if there's nothing you can do about it, why bother?
Yeah, it's true. Right? It's true. You're just getting a lot of data on yourself that you can't change.
Exactly. And then it gets to be too much.
Yeah.
And something else, I think we are also, functional medicine is great. I am not a functional medicine doctor. I'm a big fan of functional medicine doctors. We try to do a hybrid between incorporating aspects of functional and integrative medicine with traditional medicine. But I think now people are hitting a point where it's almost like functional medicine overload. We're being bombarded with so many things, and there's so many things that people tell you, you should check this, you should take this supplement. It's not possible. So start with the basics. Start with diet and exercise. Start cleaning up your lifestyle, fix your gut, and then start adding these things slowly. But you can't do everything that every podcast tells you to do.
True. No, it's very true. I actually am a product of what you're talking about. I have a lot of data. So if I actually printed it, I'm sure I have a large 3-inch binder on my health. Yeah. And what do you do with that?
Exactly.
Right? You have only 24 hours in a day. And if you sleep 8 hours, right? So you've got to fit what you can, and you can't spend your whole life on just this. Yeah. But I love that you've got those really powerful tools available, because I have so many women who are struggling, and I just think it's unfair that we are unsupported in our health. We're literally told, like, I have a dear friend who has low testosterone, low estrogen, low progesterone. OB-GYN did the testing and said, here you go. And then on the follow-up, she said, okay, what would you like me to do about it? He's like, nothing. We'll be fine. And I said, nothing? Yeah. That's not fair. Like, let's have solutions available. Yeah. Maybe it's just in his practice there weren't solutions, but then we as people have to get out there. And that's why I love meeting practitioners like you in solutions. So our brain works, and our energy and our mood and our body and everything is optimized. And also, don't underestimate one hormone tanking, like you said, will pull down the others as well. And then you have this, cascade, this issue going on, and we're not even understanding why we're feeling the way we are across all areas of our lives.
It's true. Our bodies are in balance, and you have to maintain that balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this talk.
Yes, me too. This was wonderful. Will you share your website and where people can find you?
Sure. It's hybridmedicalsolution.com. That's solution without an S at the end. Okay. And our office is in West Boca. Office phone number is 561-898-0020. And we have a podcast as well. It's the Hybrid Healing Hour, where our podcast is mainly geared towards giving information to our patients, and it tries to tackle one topic at a time. So there's a podcast on thyroid, there's a podcast on vitamin D, the podcast on the ApoE gene, but it's also for patients and families of patients who don't have access to us. So if you're not a patient of ours, then the podcast can give you information that you can take back to your doctor and say, hey, can you check this on me?
So you get that range and you get that understanding. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This was wonderful.
Thanks.
Thanks for joining me for this episode. Check out our sponsor, Fusionary Formulas, the potent turmeric supplement used by doctors around the U.S. for patients with pain and inflammation. www.fusionaryformulas.com. I'm your host, Dr. Shivani Gupta. For more, visit shivanigupta.com. Subscribe to this podcast in Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Click the follow button or subscribe in any of the apps that you use. That's all I've got for you on the Fusionary Health podcast this week. You have the power to transform your health and achieve vibrant health starting today.